Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special episode of Drumroll, please. Zach and EJ talk sports with a water bottle that has a mic taped to it. We're really excited because today we're coming to you from Memorial Pool in Westfield, where we have some great bands playing to the right of us. It's also my absolute favorite time of the year because we are only a couple weeks away from our fantasy football draft, and most of you out there are probably about the same. Maybe some of you even have already drafted. How you feeling today, my man?
I'm feeling good. I'm excited to talk some fantasy football, and I'm just excited for the football season to start because the preseason started last night.
Yeah, I know. The Raiders coming out looking pretty impressive. So
I mean, they're playing the Jaguars though. So what does it really mean?
It's a good point. But what do you say we waste no time? We're hoping that we're gonna talk to you about the performers that are performing today. Maybe even grab a guest or two to come on over and chat with us. But we're gonna start off with our favorite topic of the day, and that is fantasy football. So why don't you kick off with your first initial thoughts on what this year's fantasy football draft and basically the landscape is looking like for you?
What I'm thinking is, from what I've noticed, because I've done many mock drafts, is I really like to either, if I don't have the first pick, I want to have a later pick. Because after Jonathan Taylor, which is the first pick, I don't want to take Christian McCaffrey. I don't really want to take Derrick Henry just because of the injury concerns. Dalvin Cook is shaky. I love Kupp, Jefferson, and Chase, but I don't know if I'm really comfortable taking them that high. So if I have like the sixth pick or below, I'm more comfortable taking those receivers or Najee Harris or someone like that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, right now it's really basically one of the first years that I can honestly remember where we're seeing a handful of receivers actually being in non-PPR leagues being talked about as legit top 5, top 6 picks. And I'm with you on the fact that the first handful of picks past Jonathan Taylor can be a little dicey. And in a league like ours, which is a 14-man league, that pick can make or break you. Because really, while you might not need your first-round pick to set the world on fire,
you need them to be solid.
Yeah, if you want to be competitive, your first-round pick can't be an absolute bust.
And you have a late second, so it's not like your second-round player is going to be the best of the best in the second round.
100%, because at that point in time, this year right now they're calling picks, 20 through 25 running back wise, the running back dead zone.
The dead zone.
So that's where you might be looking at your second pick, or even if you go receiver or quarterback before that, you're really going to be hurting if you go running back first round with one of those top 4 or 5 picks and it doesn't pan out, like a Dalvin Cook, who absolutely burned me last year, or many people out there that got burned by McCaffrey. We don't know what Derrick Henry is gonna look like this year for a full season. I mean, I think that last year was just a fluke. He was setting the world on fire. When he came back, he looked strong in the playoffs, but he had that freak injury. But you never know when you start looking at running backs' age and then they start suffering injury like that.
Because he's starting to get up there in age, as opposed to other running backs who are much younger and can bounce back from injuries better.
But let's talk about value. Where do you see value in the first round? What picks right now? You don't necessarily need numbers like pick 6, pick 7, but what players do you think are value first round players?
I really like Justin Jefferson the first round. I already mentioned him. I love Justin Jefferson. I had him last year, and while he was very good and consistent, he didn't exactly have the best year ever. He had a very good year. It was kind of overshadowed by Cooper Kupp. I think this year Justin Jefferson is going to be the best receiver in football, in the NFL and in fantasy football. And I don't think it'll be close. I think the Vikings are shifting to more of a pass-first offense. And I think Kirk Cousins is also a very solid quarterback. He'll be able to get him the ball. So I like him wherever you can get him. If you can get him like 8, 9, maybe not 7, even there I like him. And in the late first round, I still like guys like Nick Chubb and Javonte Williams, both of whom have been fading in drafts because of they have a reduced role with another running back maybe taking through their carries, but they're such great running backs. I think they'll still be great.
Yeah, see, it's interesting because like Williams and even Jefferson, like when we talk about first round pick, what are you looking for in your first round pick? Like for me, it almost needs to be the guy, especially if you're picking in like the top 5 or 6. I mean, we're talking about the guy on a team. There's no question that offense is going to run through Jonathan Taylor or even a Derrick Henry. You know what I mean? Like, they are the guy. You're not going to go into a game and, look at the box score and say, wow, they only handed Derrick Henry the ball 5 times this game, or, Derrick Henry was in a 60-40 run split or things like that. But when we talk about a guy like Justin Jefferson, what kind of does scare me a little bit, while I like Jefferson a lot, and I'm with you, actually, I'm higher on Jefferson than I am Cook as far as if I had to pick one in the first round. But you talk about 2 guys on the same team that have the potential of being, top 7 picks. There's only one football.
That's true.
And when
their
you talk about your
defense
first
isn't exactly locking anyone down and getting the ball back.
Right. So to me, we start thinking about like what we're looking for in that first round. Same thing with Nick Chubb. Like, I love Nick Chubb, but are we looking at him? How much is Kareem Hunt gonna vulture into his carries, and then what's the quarterback situation gonna look like? Are they even gonna be able to move the ball on the ground if everybody's just gonna load up?
I mean, you never know. Josh Rosen, breakout season coming.
I'm a Dolphins fan, so I saw a couple games with Josh Rosen a couple of years ago, and not too impressive. I mean, he did sit behind Brady and study in the Tampa film room, so maybe he picked something up there. But yeah, I mean, like, again, he's pretty much has seemed to have fallen out of the first round. But Kamara's another one that that like the Saints, the offense is going to feed through Kamara. Like, when he gets back from that suspension, which is one of the reasons he's probably fallen. Tough to take a guy in the first round that's not going to be able to play for.
And we don't even know how long the suspension is.
Right.
So what if they, for some reason, suspend him the whole year, and then you're just screwed?
Right.
Because they seem to be waiting and handling the Deshaun Watson suspension, which is a total joke, by the way. But handling that before getting to Kamara.
So who's the one guy in the first round right now, based off slots, that you would pass over?
I'm not taking Christian McCaffrey at all. If I have the 14th pick and Christian McCaffrey's there, I'm not taking him. I took him a few years ago, and I had him in another league, and every year he just burns me. He's a great running back. He's gonna run that offense when he plays. He might not play more than like 5 games, and I can't rely on him to consistently play.
Right.
So I can't rely on him to be my best player.
Well, guys like McCaffrey and, as I learned, Cook, they're really a 2 draft pick player, because you have no choice but to take their backup as a handcuff. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to miss games. I mean, Cook and McCaffrey, no matter what, are not going to give you a full season.
Sure.
So, Madison and, I'm not even sure who's backing up McCaffrey right now, because Davis is no longer on the team.
Chuba Hubbard, I think.
Hubbard?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
He didn't do great last year either.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're talking about having to actually add Madison or Hubbard just as that handcuff. Mm-hmm. But let's do some breakdowns. So we want to talk quarterbacks first?
Let's talk quarterbacks.
All right.
The quarterbacks are very interesting because you got guys at the top, Josh Allen, the consensus #1 QB. And then I think Justin Herbert is probably the next best, but it's close. So I'll take Mahomes. Mahomes is great. Joe Burrow, and I think those are the top guys who I rely on. If I draft them, I'm like, quarterback position done. These guys are going to produce, and it's pretty much a guarantee that they're going to produce.
Right.
They don't miss that many games. And but then you go lower, and you have guys like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, guys like that. And even lower, there's players you can get near the last round of drafts. Mac Jones even. Aaron Rodgers, not in the last rounds, but he's going low around like where Derek Carr is going.
Yep.
And there's still solid quarterback options. So is it worth reaching at the top for a guy like Josh Allen when you can just build other positions and wait and get someone still very good?
There's definitely a lot of mid-round, when we're speaking about quarterbacks, value, because there's a lot of fringe quarterbacks that have now had, a lot of weapons added to them. Derek Carr, obviously, one that comes to mind. Kyler Murray, another one. Lamar's getting some weapons back. Let's talk about the sleeper range quarterback-wise. Where are you on players like Lance, Tua?
I've always been not a Tua fan, but not a Tua hater. I think Tua's a fine quarterback. He's nothing special, but he's not as bad as a lot of people say he is. His arm strength, not the best, but it's not atrocious. And I would say he can make plays at a mediocre level. Would I rely on him to be my starting quarterback in fantasy football? Maybe not, but he does have a lot of weapons, and he's not a bad quarterback. Trey Lance, I like Trey Lance. He can do everything as a quarterback. He has great legs, very fast. He can throw the ball at a solid level, and he has good weapons in San Francisco. He has good chemistry. I've heard from training camp with Brandon Ayuk. Deebo Samuel said pretty much that he's still going to be running the ball a bit this year, which at first I thought he wasn't, but that helps the offense. And they got George Kittle. They just have a productive offense. I think he'll be a good quarterback. I think he could end up being a top 10-ish quarterback this year.
Well, I mean, you can, this year one of the strategies, could be to sit and wait on a quarterback and keep loading up on your receivers and running backs, and then even, basically waiver wire QBs if you need to for spot starts, because when we're looking at the league, there's some value. I mean, we don't know what we're going to get from Trey Lance, but we do know that he's not going to be, or shouldn't be at least, taken in the first 9 to 11 rounds in a draft.
Same with Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence.
100%. Where do you put a guy like Hurts? Like, where are you slotting Hurts in this draft? Like, what quarterback bracket are you putting him in? What quarterbacks are you putting him around?
I like Hurts in like a very solid bracket, because in real life he might not be in the same tier as these players, but like fantasy-wise, he's in the same tier as Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, Matthew Stafford, even Aaron Rodgers, just because of what he does on the ground. Wow, that might not produce the most in real life to being a great quarterback. In fantasy, it's great, and I think he'll, with A.J. Brown, his throwing is going to hopefully improve, and I think that puts him up there with those guys.
What is your elite quarterback bracket right now?
I only have 4 guys. I think that's Allen, Herbert, Mahomes, and Burrow. I think those are the guys. You draft them, nothing else. You draft them, you don't worry about quarterback the rest of the year. Burrow had that one injury, but besides that, they all seem to stay pretty healthy. They all are going to produce on a weekly basis, and I 100% trust them to be my quarterback one.
Where would you feel comfortable drafting Burrow?
I take Burrow right around when Mahomes and Herbert goes. If you really want Burrow, you got to jump on him once the other quarterbacks start going. So like maybe if I take Burrow with my 4th round pick, I'd be fine. If I take him in the 5th round, I'm good with that. That's about where you would go. So
really, as we see most of the time with quarterbacks, Josh Allen's going to set the tone. It's going to be who goes and grabs Josh Allen, and when do they grab him, and then when that next guy decides I'm going to nab Mahomes, because then that'll start the quarterback run.
Yeah.
So the more patient people are, the more patient, the more players will get in front of that run. But I do think, like you mentioned, once we see Josh Allen go, we're going to see, Mahomes fly right off. Herbert, I had Herbert last year. My issue with Herbert is he's a solid player, but I don't know if we talked about comfort level before, and I asked you, about your, where you felt comfortable picking certain players, in rounds. I don't think I would reach for Herbert again. I like his weapons, but I also think that Eckler gets a lot of carries in the red zone. They also, when they're down inside the 5, they do tend to pound it in with Eckler. Herbert doesn't make a ton of plays. He's an amazing quarterback.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a ton of big plays with his feet. Fantasy-wise.
Yeah.
In big game football he does, but fantasy-wise we're not getting a lot from him. So to me, Allen goes. If I'm in the position, I would probably reach and grab Mahomes, even though we don't necessarily know where what Mahomes' offense is going to look like.
Yeah.
They did rebuild that offensive line.
Yeah.
And I do think he's going to play with a mission. They didn't win a Super Bowl last year. Plus, they lost Hill, who now has said that he's playing with the most accurate quarterback of his career.
Which is not true.
No.
He's trying to boost up Mahomes, and Mahomes might have to throw, catch, throw the ball, catch the ball, play defense, punt, kick. He might have to do all of it, but
exactly.
I believe in Mahomes. I prefer Herbert purely because Eckler is also he's a good running back. Most of his best talent comes in the receiving game.
Yeah.
And I think he can make plays, but a lot of that comes in the receiving game, where I think Herbert is obviously throwing to him.
Yeah, I mean, because then Burrow, I do like Burrow, like Burrow's weapons. What about that next bracket? What quarterbacks do you have in that next group?
Then I have the guys I mentioned with Jalen Hurts. I have Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, both great quarterbacks, injury concerns, and Kyler's never really that. Both of them aren't the most consistent.
So we're seeing feet-first quarterbacks.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts. And then you got Matt Stafford and Aaron Rodgers. Matt Stafford could be there. He could also drop a bit down just because he did struggle for a few weeks in between last year. But obviously, he was great in the Super Bowl. You can't really bet against Matt Stafford right now.
Yeah, I mean, although I just read a report that he's experiencing some elbow pain that McVay said is abnormal for a quarterback.
Which is not good.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe he went back and played some baseball.
All right, well, Matt Levine just finished his solo set over there at the Performers Tent, and right now we have Charlotte playing some acoustic. She's over there on the piano playing a few songs. We're gonna take a fast break, and we're gonna come back with our first guest for you. Be right back.
All right, I'm here with Matt.
Yeah.
You just finished playing.
Yeah.
And tell us a bit about your band.
So I'm in a band called Lucky Profit, and we've been together for 2 years now. And we released our first EP on July 1st. You can check it out, Letterhead. It's out wherever you get your music. And so we were really excited about that. We've been working on it for like 6 months, and so it was a cool opportunity. And today we're going to get to play some of those songs. I'm super excited.
What instrument do you play?
I play guitar and I write the songs. Yeah.
How long have you been playing that?
I've been playing since I was 8.
Wow,
It's been a long time.
How old are you now?
I'm 18. So
That's pretty impressive.
It's been a long time. I never did the homework that my guitar teachers told me to do. I just sort of did my own thing, and I'm not the best guitar player, but I've been able to I've been able to meet a great group of guys and gal, Sam Smith, who's unfortunately not here today, but it's an awesome band, and I'm just thankful to be part of it.
So I've heard you're an Eagles fan.
Yes, I am an Eagles fan.
Are you excited this year for the Eagles?
I'm very excited, but as an Eagles fan, I've learned to temper my expectations, just because, on years where we think we're going to be really good, we're generally not. So I try to have no expectations whatsoever, because, I just want to sit back and watch, because every Sunday is going to take years off my life.
Yeah. That's a good point. How do you feel about the acquisition of A.J. Brown?
I love A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
I really hope that Jalen Hurts takes the next step in his throwing, in his passing game this year. And if he's able to take the next step, I think we're a playoff team that definitely has some wings to it.
Do you think you could beat a team like the Rams or the Buccaneers?
Yes, because I think, the Buccaneers, they're obviously a very good team, but they also have some older guys on it. So if one of those older guys falls, like Ryan Jensen, who unfortunately I think tore his ACL, the center, and then the Rams, Matt Stafford's dealing with some bad tendonitis in his elbow, so who knows if he's even going to be around come the winter time.
That's a good point. Do you think Jalen Hurts can be a Super Bowl winning quarterback?
I really hope so. He's so easy to root for. He's a winner, and I love listening to him speak. I think he's a true leader in that locker room. You just got to see if he's going to take the next step in the passing game. And I hope he does. I'm rooting for him.
Sounds good. Good luck today.
Thank you.
All right, we are back. That was an awesome interview with Lucky Profit's Matt Levine, who Lucky Profit is just getting ready to take the stage right now as we're talking, so things might get a little wild. We'll have to buckle up and see what happens.
Exciting.
Yeah. Big sports fans, the guys in that band are, so very excited to be talking sports and listening to their set. So, getting back to our fantasy special here, we talked earlier about the running back dead zone. I'm going to give you a couple guys that I like in that running back dead zone. First and foremost, James Conner. And I am doing a complete flip-flop on James Conner. Last year, I wanted no part of James Conner. But you know what? James Conner, he is the clear-cut number one in that offense. And when you're talking about fantasy and fantasy value, when you are getting a clear-cut number one running back in the 20s, RB 20s, mid-20s to 30s, I mean, you can't go wrong there. And he gets his last year, he had a very, very, very solid season. I mean, he has durability issues, but again, when we're talking about value and we're looking at somebody in that dead zone, that's who I like. Another guy that's probably worth a shot in there is Cam Akers, who I know we don't like, but you know what? When he is healthy, he is McVay's top guy. And now with Sony Michel out of there, and part of that massive, running back room in Miami.
Yeah.
One less back. I do like Cam Akers in there, and I definitely think in that point, like, He's a guy I like. Miles Sanders.
Oh, my boy.
Another guy. And now I know people are talking about maybe Gainwell, really cutting into his production. But I mean, we're talking about again a clear-cut number 1 running back there. The next guy I put on there is a little controversial. That's Eli Mitchell.
Oh.
Now,
3 of the guys you said are in a committee.
yeah, but you know what? But what I feel like is at points last year, their head coach put them in the position to be the number 1 guy. And it was theirs to kind of earn and hold. So those are guys in that particular spot that I like. But overall, if we're not talking about your studs per round, but I'm going to take you kind of round by round right now with some guys that I like and who I could live with inside each round. Coming out of the first round, if I'm in the mid-first to the back end of the first round, Najee Harris.
100%.
Give me Najee Harris all day long. If I come out of the first round with Najee Harris, that's a win for me.
And he's going to have crazy production.
Right. Second round, I know you're not a fan, but to me, Aaron Jones. Nobody's cutting into his carries as well. They're definitely going to need to run the ball. And he also has a lot of pass-catching ability.
He does.
So,
but A.J. Dillon is there.
Yeah, true. But Aaron Jones has been the guy, and he's going to give you, sometimes 3 times a season, he's going to give you one of those monster games.
That's right.
Where he's going to single-handedly win your fantasy matchup for you. Third round, and I can't believe he's a third rounder considering where we had him the last couple years, A.J. Brown.
Oh, I was pulling for A.J. Brown last year. Last year I was like 5 to 6 pick. I'm taking A.J. Brown.
Yep, A.J. Brown. Third round. I mean, you're talking about a clear-cut number 1 receiver in the third round. Fourth round to me, Terry McLaurin. Again, a clear-cut number 1 receiver that you are getting in the fourth round.
Do you believe in Carson Wentz?
You know what? I think he's an upgrade from what they had. And if we look at, last year, Pittman and Hilton, they had decent years. So he was able to, Carson, I wouldn't draft Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
But he's going to be able to get McLaurin the ball. Now, this is a guy in the 5th round that I did have last year. And I loved him. I mean, he was my number 1 receiver.
Oh, I tried to get you to trade him to me.
Yep.
Yeah.
DJ Moore.
He's a monster.
Can't go wrong with him. And now, unless Darnold beats out Baker, we're looking at Baker as the quarterback.
And Baker's a fine quarterback.
Yeah.
He's an average quarterback. And,
Right.
There's not that many people, because when McCaffrey gets hurt, not if, when McCaffrey gets hurt, there's not many other people competing for targets or volume in that offense.
100%. Now, here's one of my steals of the draft. If you can get Brandon Cooks in the 6th or 7th round, all this guy does is put up big seasons under the radar. Injury problems or bouncing around, yes, I know, but you know what? I like Davis Mills. I'm not drafting Davis Mills, but I like Davis Mills. And if you look at the last few games that Davis Mills played, you could argue that he was one of the most productive rookie quarterbacks last year.
Yeah.
And you know what? Coming out, I know he had some injuries at Stanford, but prior to that, they were very, very high on him. He was considered first-round talent.
Yeah.
So if the Texans come out and find their franchise guy with Mills, that's going to be something special for them, especially with all the draft capital that they have, they picked up with the Watson trade. But after that 7th round, this is no surprise because everybody's high on him. So do we really anticipate him being around the 7th round? Gabe Davis.
I actually disagree with that one. I think Gabe Davis is a good player. I think he would definitely be probably a top 3 round pick, top 5 round pick next year. But I don't know if I'd take him in the 7th round this year, just because I understand he went crazy in that playoff game.
Yep.
He was breaking people's ankles.
Yep.
He had 4 touchdowns. But one that was against the Chiefs defense, which was nothing special. But also, if he was so good, why didn't he perform in why didn't he perform in the regular season?
Yeah.
Why I never heard of this guy before the playoffs. So I think he could be really good, but I want him to prove it before I use a draft pick on him.
I hear you. Here is my next steal of the draft. And if you draft this man in our draft ahead of me, I'm coming for you.
Yeah.
Cordell Patterson. Love him.
Yep.
Swiss Army knife, converted from receiver to running back. He had some monster games last year. And again, in that Atlanta offense, I know we got some weapons, for Mariota to throw to, but he's the clear-cut number 1. And you talk about getting a number 1 running back in the 8th round?
Yeah.
Something to keep in mind. So if receivers start going early or you hit that running back dead zone and there's guys you don't like, you can wait and you can hang on. And this is really, I'm most proud of these late round guys, because the next round, another guy I think that could be a guy that could win you some fantasy games, Alan Lazard. I think he's going to emerge as Aaron Rodgers' #1 receiver. Big, tall, strong guy, you know, has shown flashes, and now he's going to get reps in that role with Devontae out. I mean, if we look at Devontae's game with Rodgers, it was a lot of back fades, you know, a lot of 50-50 balls. And I feel they're going to go to Lazard, and that whole receiving room was emptied out. Now, I know they brought some talent in.
They brought in a rookie receiver who seems solid, but Rodgers is comfortable with Lazard, and he has to throw the ball to someone.
Yep, and keeping with that theme, when Tyreek Hill goes down to Miami, Sky Moore, rookie, fills that role in Kansas City. A real burner. Somebody's got to catch those wasps, you know, down the field. He's another guy that, you know what, if I'm not liking the way that the running back and receiver landscape is going early, they're sitting there. Those are guys that you can grab in those late rounds that could actually have a lot of value for you, especially 5-6 games into the season. Could emerge to being #1 receivers that you were getting in the back end of the draft.
Yeah.
After that, I don't know how to exactly pronounce his name, but I'm going to say Ogakwe. That's the
Denver?
Tight end from Denver.
I never understood why people are so high on him. Obviously, he's not like overly high, but he's been in the league for a while.
Well, you know what? They sent Noah Fant packing.
They did.
And he had some very productive games last year. And with Russ back there now cooking, you know Russ likes to cook up with his tight ends.
That's true.
So
I don't hate that pick. I don't really know much about him. I don't know if I trust him, but
yeah.
I like that.
Now, a complete contradiction to my running back dead zone, but another guy I like is Davis Price, rookie from the 49ers. We know that Shanahan likes to give those guys a shot in his offense. And if we do start seeing some issues or some struggles with that backfield, somebody's got to emerge. I do like Price. I like the way he ran in college, and I know that Shanahan is high on him. So he could be an interesting pick in the back end, especially to see what he shapes up. And with that too, if we're talking about the 14th round, Brian Robinson, the rookie running back in Washington.
I mean, they already have 2 running backs there, though.
But who have health problems and durability issues. So I like that. And then last,
in the end of the draft, you're taking a risk on a guy who could end up really producing. So. And
that's the last round. I'm a big fan of Josh Palmer. Actually, I was a fan. I had Palmer and Patrick, but Patrick just blew out his ACL in Denver, so he's done. So Palmer now is my #1 sleeper wide receiver this year. I know that he's built a good rapport with Herbert. I know that reports about the progress that he has made, in camp and in off-season and OTAs and everything has been, dramatic. So I like Josh Palmer a lot. But how about you? So where do you stand on some of these, and where do you find some value picks this year?
I like a lot of these guys, and I feel like for some reason a bunch of receivers who I think are very, very talented fall to like the 4th, 5th, 6th round. And then I see a guy like Devontae Smith falling so far in draft. I understand. They just brought in a wide receiver 1. He's not the wide receiver 1. T. Higgins isn't a wide receiver 1. T. Higgins is great. You don't need to be the wide receiver 1, and we know how talented Devontae Smith is. I was very impressed with him last year. I like him. And I'm high on the rookie receivers because maybe not all of them will be great, but the last few years there's been a receiver who's been a rookie who's been great, and a lot of them have been good. And you look at guys like Treylon Burks on the Titans. He is the wide receiver 1 there. Obviously, it's Derrick Henry's offense, but they do need a wide receiver 1, and that's Treylon Burks. I like Garrett Wilson for the Jets. He might not be their wide receiver 1. It might be Elijah Moore. I like him. Drake London, another guy in that Atlanta offense who they took him so high. You think they're going to try to get him the ball.
Gallups in Green Bay.
Yeah, and Sky Moore on the Chiefs.
Now, let's talk about a couple other situations here. Sutton or Judy, who we settling on in Denver?
I like Judy. He's a bit younger. I feel like he's a bit more athletic, a bit more talented. I liked him out of college. I still like him. I think he could emerge as a Cooper Kupp-like person.
Okay. Where do you like a Deontay Johnson?
I'm not that high on Deontay Johnson. I'll take him. I'll consider him like the 4th, 5th round. But even then, I think there's definitely guys who I can get there I'd rather have over him, just because I'm so unsure of Pittsburgh's passing game still. And I don't know how, as great as he was last year, I don't know if I'm really 100% sold on Deontay Johnson.
Right. Well, I mean, it looked like Big Ben was throwing milk jugs last year to his receivers as opposed to, tight NFL spirals. So I think that, at this point in time, you could probably get the ball down the field, more efficient. Last guy I want to talk about, then I want to talk about who we're fading on. St. Brown from Detroit.
I love St. Brown. I think their offense is going to be better than many people expect, obviously. Quarterback situation, not great.
Where do you like him?
I like him in, same thing, 4th round. I love him in the 4th round. I think he could be a sleeper wide receiver 1. I'd love him as a wide receiver 2.
Okay. So now, since we've kind of talked about who we're high on, let's talk about some players we're fading on. Do you have any fades right now that jump to mind for you?
Zeke. I've been saying this for 3 years. Tony Pollard is a better player than Zeke. He makes more plays happen. I think Zeke, just to his reputation, and I don't think they're going to go away from Zeke, but I think Zeke isn't as productive as many people think he will be. I think he's continuing to get a bit worse. So, on the other end, I love Pollard. I love Tony Pollard. Same with A.J. Dillon. Contradictory to Aaron Jones. I have nothing against Aaron Jones. I've just never been a huge fan. I think any guys who are backups in a committee, I really like those running backs.
Okay. What about a player like Saquon?
I like drafting Saquon this year, just because it's for him and CMC, I would like them in the same spot, 25 through 30, because the risk of injuries is built into the draft price. If both of them play, they're great top 10 players. If they don't play, they might not play, but then you're not taking them with a top pick, you're taking them with your 3rd-ish pick. So I like him there.
Where are you putting, since we're on the Giants, what about a player like Tony?
I don't know about any of the Giants receivers. Just him, Kenny Galladay, all of them. I think Tony has a lot of talent. Daniel Jones isn't the best, but he's he's okay. And I'm not huge on him, but if you end up with Tony, it's not a horrible thing. He might produce, he might not.
Okay. Tyreek Hill.
I like Tyreek Hill this year. Obviously not as high as he used to be, but same thing with Saquon. Having Tua as a quarterback is built into the asking in the draft price. Same bodies around 30-ish, in the 20s to 30, and Miami might use him in more of a Debo Samuel role, getting involved in the running game as well. And I think Tyreek Hill is a great player. I think even though Tua's his quarterback, he'll still produce.
Let's talk about some of the guys on Tampa. Where do we see guys like Brady and Evans? Are we fading on them? I mean, all Mike Evans does is put up 1,000-yard seasons. But is this? Are we at the end of the rope here? Is this year it catches up with us? And where are you slotting Mike Evans?
I'm not huge on Tom Brady, Leonard Fournette, Godwin, anyone else in that offense. I think Mike Evans is going to be great this year. Godwin might not be ready for the first few weeks because of his torn ACL. I think Mike Evans is going to feast. And either way, he's going to have 1,000 yards again. It's all he does. And I like him. I think he's going to have a lot of touchdowns. I think he's definitely a good wide receiver 1 for teams.
Is Julio a draft or is he a waiver guy?
He's a waiver guy if he impresses. You can't get burned by Julio. There's so many other guys, even in the later rounds, who have a lower floor and can have the same ceiling. Julio's not the same player as he was in Atlanta. He showed it in Tennessee last year. He'll probably get injured either way. So I don't like Julio now.
What about, let's talk about a guy like Will Fuller. Unsigned, but once he signs, he could instantly step in and produce. Is he worth a draft pick or is he a waiver?
I would say it has to be a waiver unless he gets signed, because what if he doesn't get signed? What if he tears his ACL training, then no one signs him? And Odell Beckham, is OBJ going to play? Is he going to be ready to play because of his injury?
I do not know.
Because if he is ready to play, if he signs somewhere, OBJ was great at the end of last year, but anyone who's not on a team, I don't really trust drafting him.
Especially in a 14-man league, we don't really have much. I mean, a guy like that, if he's out or he's on the PUP list, you could draft him and put him on injured reserve, but it's tough to be able to reserve a draft pick or a spot on your squad for a guy that's not even in a lineup, which brings me to a player like Deshaun Watson. We've been talking quarterbacks for a while. Where are you putting a player like Watson?
I like him in the mid-quarterback tier, so it came around the same class. Kirk Cousins, Mac Jones, even Trey Lance.
So who would you take ahead of him?
So I'm taking the two tiers I already mentioned. I like Dak, I like Russell Wilson, and I like Derek Carr. And then I'm taking Kirk Cousins and then Deshaun Watson.
I think I would probably, even though I like players like Carr, Kyler, I probably would end up thinking about maybe drafting Deshaun in that, if I had to up there and then patch together my first 6 weeks. There's a lot of value.
They're appealing the suspension. He could be out for the whole year.
True.
And then you're just wasting.
Then you wasted a pick.
Yeah.
So that is very tricky. I mean, we're drafting at the end of August, so we'll see if there's any sort of resolution by then. But let's see. We're looking through A.J. Brown. I put him in the 3rd round. Where do you ideally see him going?
I see him going in the 3rd round. He's not in a pass-first offense. They're going to go running back by committee. Hurts isn't the best quarterback in the world, but he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's super talented. He picked it up at the end of the year. At the beginning of the year last year was kind of disappointing, but I think he's a 3rd round receiver. He could be higher, but he might disappoint and be lower. I think 3rd round, if you take him late 2nd round, that's fine too.
Who emerges out of New England as the fantasy wide receiver 1?
One? I mean, Bill Belichick essentially said he doesn't care about fantasy football. I think they're going to do the Patriots offense. They're just going to spread the ball, like 3 running backs, 7 receivers or something like that. I think if you had to pick one, they like what Devontae Parker's doing. But Mac Jones isn't the best thrower of the deep ball. I don't know if you really trust anyone in that system to really.
Which tight end do you like in New England?
Hunter Henry. I think Hunter Henry's the better tight end. He catches touchdowns. I actually like Hunter Henry.
Okay. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back to you with a little bit more fantasy football and wrapping things up as Lucky Profit is closing out the show here at Memorial Pool. Be right back. All right, we are back as Lucky Profit is blazing through a set here at Memorial Pool. Right now they're playing From a Distance, which is off their EP, which you can check out on Spotify and Apple Music. Lucky Profit, the EP is called Letterhead. All right, so we were talking wide receivers. Any final thoughts on wide receivers before we close out our wide receiver segment?
I really like T. Higgins. I've already mentioned this, but he might be the 2nd receiver in that offense. That offense is going to be amazing. Their running back's great. They have 2 great receivers. They lost their tight end, but it doesn't really matter. Joe Burrow's amazing. They're probably going to be the highest scoring offense in football, and I think T. Higgins is going to get the ball. I think maybe Jamar Chase produces a bit less to even out almost a bit with T. Higgins.
So what number 2 receivers in offenses around the league do you like in fantasy? So obviously you just went T. Where are you on Adam Thielen? Is he a fade?
I think Adam Thielen is a fade. Not like too far, but he's not obviously on the same level. He's getting older, he's getting slower, and I think that offense is going to be, as I've said, dialed in on Justin Jefferson. So I think Thielen's numbers will go down a bit, but he's still a good receiver. Still worth the draft.
Ayuk.
I'm loving Brandon Ayuk. There's been clips. He's been absolutely playing amazing in training camp. I think Trey Lance likes him. He's a fast guy. He's a big guy. I think he'll be good.
All right. What about Smith, the Eagles?
I like Devontae Smith. He had a great rookie year. He's getting better. While he might not produce, he might not get better in numbers-wise. I expect him to produce about the same level.
Okay. How about Jaylen Waddle?
I'm not huge on Jaylen Waddle.
So Waddle's a little bit of a fade for you.
Not like he's obviously still worth if I could get him like the 3rd round, but he's going pretty high, maybe 4th round. He's going like in the 2nd round, and he's the wide receiver 2 in an offense with not a great quarterback. So I don't know how much I believe, and he's not the main focus of that offense anymore. So I don't think he'll be as good.
Okay. It's always tough when you're looking at offenses that spread the ball around like that. Like what about, say, for example, Claypool in Pitt?
I'm not huge on Claypool either. He doesn't seem like a hard-working person, really. That's a bold accusation, but I'm staying away from Deontay Johnson. I'm staying away from pretty much everyone not named Najee Harris in that offense.
I hear you. Now, who do you like in Arizona as the what do we got as second wide receiver? We putting Hollywood Brown as our number 2?
I mean, DeAndre Hopkins suspended,
Yep.
so I think Hollywood Brown actually will have a good year. Because while I'm no longer a believer in Hollywood Brown on the field in real life to win games. He has terrible hands. I could catch the football better than him. He's insanely fast. Seems like the type of receiver that Kyler would really like to work with. And he's going to be the wide receiver 1 until Hopkins comes back. So I think he'll produce at the beginning of the season.
All right, what about Seattle? What do we make out of the Seattle room this year? And where are you putting a guy like DK? Is DK a fade?
I'm actually not fading DK Metcalf. I think he might not be getting the same amount of great throws, but he's so good. I think they're just going to be like Drew Lock. It doesn't matter. Your stats don't matter. As soon as we can get another quarterback, you're gone. Feed the ball to DK. I like him. Don't like Tyler Lockett, though.
Lockett's fade?
I feel like Lockett was always a great receiver, but his success was very dependent on Russell Wilson. He doesn't have the same physical tools as DK Metcalf. I think he won't be very good this year.
Let's jump to, say, Indianapolis. What do you think about the Colts? If you're looking at me, did Pittman establish himself now as the number 1 with T.Y. moving to the second?
I think Pittman's the number 1 in that offense. I would not trust Pittman as the number 1 on my team, though, just because he had a good, 4 or 5 week stretch last year, which was very impressive. But he wasn't showing me wide receiver 1 production last year, where I trust taking him as my top wide receiver.
You know who does intrigue me, and I don't want to ping-pong around too much, but you know who does intrigue me in that offense as a potential sleeper is Mo Alley Cox. Big, fast, tight end.
Yeah.
You know?
Tight end's a tough position.
He could be a great streaming option. Yeah.
They need to throw the ball to someone. When John Taylor's not doing it, Pittman will get his. And I think T.Y. Hilton's declining pretty hard. So I think it's not a bad idea.
If you had to go there, who do you like in Jacksonville?
I hate to say Christian Kirk out of all the people there, just because, they paid him way too much money. But you think they did that for a reason. They're going to try to get him the ball. They really don't have any other great options, so I'll take him.
Okay. All right. So now we say we move on. Why don't we talk about some few defenses that you might like?
Oh, defenses. You got to think the Rams. They have the best corner, the best D lineman, probably the 2 best defensive players. Football. TJ Watt is an argument. Being TJ Watt, I like the Steelers. I like the Browns. And then defenses and kickers, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Mostly it's matchups that you're looking at for defenses. So whoever plays the Jets the most. I think the Patriots defense is going to fall off a bit this year. They lost some key players. But yeah, I don't mind the Chargers. Well, I love the Chargers defense, actually. They brought in J.C. Jackson. They brought in some solid players. Buffalo's defense, they have brought in Von Miller.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of defenses that you can look at that are going to be very good this year.
I don't want to bore everybody with a ton of defensive talk, but another defense that I like that we didn't mention, Dallas. I think Dallas is going to be one that, they may not, stop teams from scoring a ton, but I think they are going to get their turnovers. And in fantasy,
that's what Trevon Diggs does.
Exactly.
He doesn't play defense, he gets picks.
Yep.
Honestly, you should be a wide receiver. I think you'd be good. And then they got Micah Parsons, he's absolutely gross.
Yep.
So good. And kicker-wise, Justin Tucker, Evan McPherson, and then everybody else.
Yep.
That's really all you need to know.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Lucky Profit starts to wind down, it's about time for us to wind down. So why don't we kind of close out with your final fantasy thoughts and any advice you have to everybody out there that may be getting ready to draft?
One guy, the final thing I'm going to say, he's going to be good this year. He has a good opportunity. I think he'll be in the first round of drafts next year. Breece Hall. He's going to be the running back 1 in New York, and I think they're going to give him the ball. He's very talented. I think he'll do great.
Pulling up my notes. A guy that if you have to take a shot on somebody, I like Tolbert, wide receiver in Dallas. Everything can't go to CD. And with that wide receiver room clearing out with Wilson going down to Miami and Cooper now in Cleveland, I like Tolbert. Like you, I also like Breece Hall. We talked about Deontay Johnson already. We talked about St. Brown. I think Burks in Tennessee, big tall guy. I mean, clearly when they traded A.J. Brown, they were letting the world know they drafted his replacement.
Yeah, they literally drafted a clone of A.J. Brown.
Yep, and the ball's got to go somewhere, and especially if Tannehill loses his job.
Yeah.
You know, and you put a rookie quarterback in, having a big, tall wide receiver is a nice safety net. So those are my final guys. How about draft strategy? What's going to be your mindset going into this year's fantasy draft?
So what I'm looking at, and I'm not giving away too many of my secrets, but in the first round, I'm trying to get Jonathan Taylor, obviously, with the first pick. But if you can't do that, if I have a top pick, out of the running backs, I like Dalvin Cook, but I'd probably take Cooper Kupp next. In the first round, I'm probably taking Taylor, Najee, or I'm looking at one of the great wide receivers, like Jamar, Jefferson, Kupp. Even I'd look on Stephon Diggs, and in the late round, maybe Devontae Adams. And then, depending on who I pick up with my second round, I want to pick up a running back pretty much. Even if I already took one, I'm good with having getting rid of my top two running backs right away, and then just try to get it in receivers like DJ Moore, like you said, guys who are going really low, and then waiting on the quarterback. I don't need to wait for like a Mac Jones, but I can wait for someone not.
There you go, shout out.
Not the top tier, and same with tight end. I don't know really, even though there's a drop off, I think you really got to target running back and wide receiver early, then fall back, get your QB and tight end, and honestly just wait till the last few rounds, take kicker defense.
Right.
And that's good. Take players who have high upside, young players, and yeah.
I'm basically going into this year, and I'm breaking things down into four categories, which almost can be four categories per round. And the first is your can't miss guys, the guys that you pretty much have no choice but to take in that pick. After that, your value guys, your sleepers, and then your fades.
Yeah.
And, you know, to me, fantasy drafts are won not with the can't miss players. You get burned by the can't miss players, but nobody wins their draft by drafting a can't miss player.
No.
You lose your draft by drafting a can't miss player who misses or gets hurt. Gets hurt for you. But really, the drafts are won in finding your value guys, identifying your value guys, being patient, knowing the guys that you identify as potential sleepers, getting them at the back end or keeping an eye on them early in the year on waivers, and then your fades, getting your fades right. You know, are you going to draft names or are you going to draft statistics? And this year, I'm leaning a little bit more on statistics than I am names.
That's true.
And I feel like there's a lot of good value this year to be had in the back end, not only of the draft itself, but in the back end of each round. You know, while Jonathan Taylor, you know, is your surefire number one, there's guys at the back end, like you mentioned, like a Nick Chubb that you can get, or, you know, depending on where Najee Harris goes, or Swift, you know, that are going to be guys that are going to get the same workload, that have that potential. And you know, you're not paying the premium price. So basically, you're trying to find your guys at a discount.
One more sleeper, Robert Woods. Before he got hurt last year, I mean, at the beginning of the year, he was considered the wide receiver one over Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
So he's a good receiver. I believe now he's down in Tennessee, and obviously they have Treylon Burks, but they need a wide receiver too, or he could be the wide receiver one. I think he'll be good this year.
Now, do you like? Last thing about we're gonna close where we began last year. Cooper Kupp question.
I mean, I don't really
Overrated.
have a choice.
Do you like Cooper Kupp in the second spot of the draft?
I think Cooper Kupp's a fine pick because he's a guy who I don't think he'll be as good as he was last year because, I mean, how can he? But he's a very safe pick at the second pick. He's not really going to get hurt.
Is he safe, though, if Matt Stafford's out?
I think he's
And Blake Bortles is throwing the football.
That's true because before Matt Stafford came, I think he's the safest wide receiver you can pick. And I think he also still has the potential to have a season like he did last year. So I think I like him at the second pick if you're going for a receiver and don't like the running backs.
Okay. This year's Fantasy Player of the Year will be, who will be next year's number one first-round draft pick?
There's two players I'm considering. Number one, Justin Jefferson. He is a receiver
Unprecedented.
in standard, but
Maybe not since Randy Moss.
no, he's a monster. But who I'm going to go with, I'm going with Najee Harris. He's fast, he's strong, he's pretty much almost Derrick Henry. And he's so much younger, he has an intense workload, he's a workhorse. I think he's going to be the number 1 pick next year.
All right. Which rookie running back last year has the strongest year this year?
Najee Harris. I mean,
Where do you, and then what about Williams?
I think Javonte Williams will also have a very good year. I think he'll be worse than Najee Harris, obviously, but he'll be up there too.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we can't wait. Feel free to message us, write to us, and tell us who you like this year, who your fades are, who your can't misses are, and also feel free to send us your fantasy draft lineups when they're all said and done. We'll be bringing you some updates, and we're going to take a little break for the rest of the summer, and then we're going to be back in the fall with some new exciting programming, some special guests. So stay tuned. Till then, stay cool. See you in the fall.